Good morning. I'm Vanita Ramjake, reading in SYBA this year. Forum for Value Education in my college celebrates the birth anniversary of various writers, thinkers, and social reformers. Under it, I reveal my understanding of Annie Bronte, one of the great writers of English literature. Annie Bronte was an English novelist and poet and the youngest member of the Bronte literary family. She was the daughter of Maria born Branwell and Patrick Bronte, a poor Irish clergyman in the Church of England. Annie lived most of her life with a family at the parish of Havant of the Yorkshire Moors. Otherwise, she attended a boarding school in Mirfield between 1836 and 1837 and between 1839 and 1845 lived elsewhere, working as a governess. In 1846, she published a book of poems with the sisters and later two novels. Initially under the pen name Acton Bell, her first novel, Agnes Grey, was published in 1847 with Wuthering Heights. Her second novel, The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, was published in 1848. The Tenant of Wildfell Hall is thought to be one of the first feminist novels, and he died at 29, probably of pulmonary tuberculosis. After Annie's death, her sister Charlotte edited Agnes Grey to fix issues with its first edition, but prevented republication of The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. This is the one reason why Annie is not as well known as her sisters. Nonetheless, both of Annie's novels are considered classics of English literature. The Bronte were at home with their father during the summer of 1845. None had an immediate prospect of employment. Charlotte found Emily's poems, which had been shared only with Annie. Charlotte said that they should be published. Annie showed her own poems to Charlotte, and Charlotte thought that these verses too had a sweet, sincere pathos of their own. The, the sisters eventually reached an agreement. They told nobody what they were doing. With the money from Elizabeth Branwell, they paid for publication of a collection of poems, 21 from Annie and 21 from Emily and 19 from Charlotte. The book was published under pen name which retained their initials but concealed their sex. Annie's pseudonym was Acton Bell. Poems of Currer, Ellis, and Acton Bell was available for sale in May 1846. The cost of publication was £31 and 10 shillings, about three quarters of Annie's salary at Thorpe Free. On 7th May 1846, the first three copies were delivered to Howard Parsons. The book achieved their somewhat favorable reviews, but was a commercial failure. With only two copies sold in the first year, Annie nonetheless found a market for her later poetry. The Leeds Intelligencer and Fraser's magazine published the poem The Narrow Way under the pseudonym in December 1848. 4 months earlier, Farces magazine had published her poem The Three Guides. By July 1846, a package containing the manuscript of each sister's first novel was making the rounds of London publishers. Charlotte had written The Professor, Emily had written The Wuthering Heights, and Amy had written Agnes Grey. After some rejections, Wuthering Heights and Agnes Grey were accepted by the publisher Thomas Cutley Newby. The Professor was rejected. It was not long before Charlotte had completed her second novel, Jane Eyre. Jane Eyre was accepted immediately by Smith Elder and Cooperation. It was the first published of the sisters' novels and an immediate and resounding success. Meanwhile, Annie and Emily's novels lingered in the press. Annie and Emily were obliged to pay £50 to help meet their publishing costs. The publisher was galvanized by the success of Jane Eyre and published Wuthering Heights and Agnes Grey together in December 1847. They sold well, but Agnes Grey was outshone by Emily's more dramatic Wuthering Heights. The Tenant of Wildfell Hall, Annie's second novel. The Tenant of Wildfell Hall was published in the last week of June 1848. It is easy to underestimate the extent to which the novel challenged the social and legal structures. In 1913, May Sinclair said that the slamming of Helen Huntingdon's bedroom door against her husband reverberated throughout Victorian England. In the book, Helen has left her husband to protect their son from his influence. She supports herself and her son in hiding by painting. She was violated social conventions and English law until the Married Women's Property Act 1870 was passed. A married woman had no legal existence independent from her husband and could not own property nor sue or divorce for control the custody of her children. Helen's husband had a right to reclaim her and charge her with kidnapping. By substituting on her own income, she was stealing her husband's property since this income was legally his. Annie stated her intention in the second edition, published in August 1848. She presented a forceful rebuttal to criticize among the chariot, who considered her portrayal of Huntingdon over graphic and disturbing. Annie wished to tell the truth. She explained further that when we have to do with wise and viscous characters, I maintain it is better to depict them as they really are than as they would wish to appear. To represent a bad thing in its least offensive light is doubtless the most agreeable course for a writer of fiction to pursue, but it is the most honest or the safest. Is it better to reveal the snares and pitfalls of life to the young and thoughtless traveler, or to cover them with branches and flowers? O reader, if there were less of this delicate concealment of facts, this whispering, peace, peace, when there is no peace, there would be less of sign and misery to the young of both sexes who were left to wring their bitter knowledge from experience. Annie also castigated reviewers who speculated on the sex of authors and the perceived appropriateness of their writing. She was satisfied that if a book is a good one, it is so whatever the sex of the author may be. All novels are or should be written for both men and women to read, and I am at a loss to conceive how a man should permit himself to write anything that would be really disgraceful to a woman, or why a woman should be censored for writing that would be proper and becoming for a man. Thank you and have a good day.